First of all, I need to point this out straight away. It's always going to be quite difficult in a 5 to 7 minute set to kind of build the sort of rapport you need with your audience, the level of trust to talk about something a little bit contentious. Because everybody these days, you'll hear it in every newspaper, that kids these days are far too easily offended. It's the snowflake generation. They want to run away to their safe spaces. And with the attitude they've got these days, we never would have won the Second World War. Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that to have any kind of meaningful impact on the Second World War now, you need to be at least in your mid to late 90s. So most of them are dead. And the people now banging on about how we wouldn't have won the Second World War are people that were born in the 50s and the 60s. So all right, Gary from Luton, yeah, thanks for your input, but you were born 11 years after Hitler fucking died. So you might have to remind me which one of his generals you personally defeated in hand-to-hand combat on the roof of the burning Reichstag. Wind your fucking neck in. But that's not to say that this generation don't every now and then give good examples of ludicrous behaviour that feeds into that narrative. Take, for example, that woman a couple of weeks back who was barred from taking her emotional support peacock on a 6-hour flight in the United States. Interesting idea, that, because she rang up the airline on 2 occasions before she brought this peacock to the fucking airport and said, "Can I bring my emotional support peacock with me?" And quite rightly, they went, "No. That sounds fucking mental." And she turned up anyway with this 4-foot-tall, giant, iridescent fucking dinosaur and was then expecting to be allowed to take it onto the plane with her. And they told her no. And here's the thing, right? Emotional support dog, this is the thing that everyone's used the stick to beat this generation with now, is that we need these emotional support animals. Actually, emotional support dogs are genuinely helpful to people with social anxiety disorders, people on the autistic spectrum, people with other mental health issues. I'm not taking the piss out of that, all right? What I'm taking the piss out of is the fact that these knobheads have co-opted that idea to bring whatever exotic animal they like onto any walk of life just because they feel a bit sad that day. You don't get to walk around New York with a monkey. You're not living in a Philip Pullman novel, you feather-wanking mentalist. It's a bunch of bullshit, and it's so rich, because the idea was, and also, I don't care, even if, by some weird coincidence, she was the one person in the world, right? Dogs are lovely, friendly, loyal creatures. They give you unconditional love. They're supportive. That's why they're used to support emotionally fragile people. Peacocks are vicious, aggressive, territorial creatures that will peck your fucking face off if you think that you have corn. Like, at no point has it ever happened, has anybody ever woken up and thought, well, you know what? I was paralysed with ennui this morning, crushed with existential dread, but then I looked into the eyes of Dexter, my emotional support peacock, and he said, "Poof! And on top of that, right, there are 100 other people on this fucking plane. I'm quite a nervous flyer. Have I got on the plane? Fair enough, yes, she's calmed down by the presence of Dexter the peacock. But had I got on this aircraft, being a nervous flyer, and I've sat down in my seat, tapping my foot, looking at the floor, waiting for the takeoff, and then over the sea, I just get... I'm going to be feeling pretty fucking anxious. And I don't have my emotional support animal with me because I'm not a fucking weapon. And what if there's an emergency in that situation? Do you really think an emotional support peacock's going to be able to control its behaviour in that environment? No. It's going to be running up and down the aisles, kicking children in the throat, pecking life jackets. It's going to be like Rod Hull on Parkinson, except children have lost eyes and everybody is screaming. Until finally, at the end of all of the chaos, Samuel L. Jackson just bursts out of the cockpit with a shotgun and screams, "I've had enough of these motherfucking emotional support peacocks on this motherfucking plane!" And on top of that, right, this peacock has an Instagram account. Like, there are pictures of it going around New York on a lead. She's a performance artist. If your emotional support peacock has its own Instagram account, you don't have emotional support peacock. You're just a cunt with a peacock. And it's about time you learned that the centre of the universe is not you. But never mind. People always say the same things, right? People are too easily offended these days. And you can't say anything to a woman anymore after the Me Too thing. You can't do anything more. I miss the good old days when you were allowed to flirt. I miss the good old days. The good old days back in the 50s when you could walk into the office and slap a woman and come up her bum and nobody said anything. It's like, no. It's like, if women are now saying to you that you can't do the things you used to do, it's not because of political correctness gone mad. It's because women never liked the things that you used to do all the fucking time. It's as simple as that. And don't get me wrong, right? Sexual harassment is not necessarily always just violence and aggression. There's also manipulation and coercion and all kinds of nasty psychological tricks that men use in a way to manipulate and abuse women. And anybody, right, can be involved in that. Anybody can be a victim of it. I know that for a fact because I have been a victim of this kind of sexual manipulation and coercion. And it was devastating for me because I 100% trusted the person that manipulated me into having sex with somebody that I did not want to have sex with because that person was me. And if I can explain what happened, right? A couple of years back, I went on a date with a girl. We'd only been speaking online. I hadn't met her before. She'd travelled from another city to come and see me. We sat down to have a few drinks. We had a bit of dinner. I liked her. She was pretty. She was funny. She was interesting. But there wasn't that spark. There was nothing that particularly interested me to pursue it any further. And we were sitting down for a bit. I paid for dinner because I'm not a knobhead. I wasn't going to bail on her. She'd made the effort to come out. And towards the end of the night, basically, I asked her when our last train home was going to be. And she said, "Oh, I've already missed it. You bought for dinner. I thought things were going well. I just assumed I was staying at yours tonight." Which is not something I'd been expecting to happen. And my choices at this point were essentially to kick this girl I'd only met one night out onto the street to be homeless and in danger for the evening, or to bring her back to mine where hopefully I could diffuse the situation and leave her with somewhere safe to stay that night. So that's what I did, because I'm a fucking idiot. And we got back to mine, and it became very apparent very quickly that there was going to be no diffusing of the situation, right? It was just not going to happen. I realise this now. If you bring somebody back to yours and then try and change into not having sex with them, you have sent somewhat of a mixed signal. And here's the thing, right? Before we proceed with this story, we have to explain one little particular quirk of my penis that you need to know about. My penis is a temperamental little bugger. I cannot use most brands of condoms. Essentially, I don't want to be too graphic, but if I wear latex, my penis will... My penis? If I wear latex, my penis will look like a Fraggle with psoriasis for about 3 weeks. And this is the point at which I decided I had to think of a great excuse to not have sex with this girl that I didn't particularly want to have sex with. And I am not proud of this, right? I explained this situation to her, and I then claimed that I did not have the condoms on me that I required in order to seal the deal. Now, that is a dick move, if you are doing that to try and manipulate a woman into having unprotected sex with you. However, I was doing it to try and manipulate her into not having sex with me at all. So I think that's a slightly different situation. Unfortunately, it didn't work, because she immediately said, "Well, I'm on the pill, so it doesn't matter." And at that point, I was so baffled by my own weird choices that I essentially had to go along with everything that happened that evening. So not only did I manipulate myself and trick myself into having sex with somebody that I didn't really want to have sex with, I manipulated and tricked myself into having unprotected sex with that person. And on top of that, because I was so confused about the fact I'd slept with her, I ended up dating her for about 3 months because I couldn't make any sense of the decision that I'd made. So essentially, I tricked myself into an ongoing sexual relationship that I wanted no part of, and that really hurt, because I trusted me, right? I thought I had my back, but it turns out I'm just like every other sleazebag that wants to get into my pants. That was more confessional than funny, but you've been lovely. Cheers. I've been Sam Gore. Enjoy the rest of your night.